Today I'm cooking a Taiwanese dish called 3-cup chicken. It's so popular, it's considered Taiwan's national dish. Every family has their own version, and the Tila household is no exception. I'm gonna show you my favorite twist to this classic recipe. All right, Sichuan dried shiitakes, dried chilies. So dried shiitake mushrooms have to be one of my favorite ingredients to play with for a few reasons. When you dry them, you actually increase the savoriness. 2, you change the texture and they eat more like meat. In fact, the liquid that you reconstitute these mushrooms in become a phenomenal vegetarian or plant-based stock. As for dried chilies, these are Chinese dried chilies for Sichuan food, so they're gonna be very, very spicy. You know, just like fresh chilies, there's a range of spicy levels, there's a range of flavors, so make sure you know what you're getting into because these are very, very hot. I always keep dried chilies in my pantry because they never go bad and they're very versatile. I can reconstitute them to make chili paste or sauces, or I could just blend them to make a little bit of chili powder. 3-cup chicken is traditionally made with chicken pieces like breast or thighs. The Tila family twist is chicken wings. It is no secret that I have an obsession with chicken wings. I eat them multiple times a week. I think they're more versatile and more delicious for this dish, and I'm gonna prove that to you right now. Okay, so to get into this dish, we need to start by soaking our black shiitake mushrooms. These are basically umami bombs, but to release the flavor of the bomb, we need to soak them in hot water. A little goes a long way, so I only need a few. I like to do them in a saucepan with very hot water. These dried mushrooms should soak from about 15 minutes all the way up to an hour. You can't over soak these, so don't worry. I always like to work from vegetables to protein. It keeps the raw stuff away until we absolutely need it. We got some very traditional Taiwanese aromatics here. I'm gonna show you how to break them down. So first I'm gonna cut up some ginger. The application here is basically just a saute, so I just want thin slices. And I'm always thinking to myself, how am I cooking this thing? Well, I'm gonna apply this to heat to saute, so I'm gonna cut it into thin tiles. So next I need some green onions. I'm gonna use the whites to saute and braise, so I'm gonna keep them larger to about 1-inch pieces. I need the greens or the tops as garnish. So now I'm gonna gather and cut them on the bias. So just a slight angle and nice thin slices. I think they look nicer this way. They don't taste any different. When your food looks awesome, I think the perception of taste increases. So very simple. As for garlic in this dish, you've seen me kind of mince for stir fry, but because we're braising, I'm just gonna cut them in half. If they are massive cloves, you can third them, but remember it's always about flat surface area to saute and cook out the flavor nice and evenly. So I've got these larger pieces for the braise, and they're going in at the same time, so there's no reason why they shouldn't be put in together. And as you can see, I've kept them on the large side, so they don't burn up really quickly. One bowl is for the braise, the second bowl is for garnish, and I really love getting all my prep, my mise en place out of the way before I shift over to chicken. So with all my veg prep done, I'm moving on to the raw. And a really good tip is I like to pull out a gel board and cut all my raw proteins on a gel board. It's just an extra safe way to kind of keep raw separated from fresh herbs or vegetables. Chicken wings come in various ways from the store. They come already separated, but just in case they don't, I do want to show you what a whole chicken wing looks like and how to break it up. We call it fabricating in the kitchen. So when I look at a chicken wing, I look for V's. And V's usually mean you have articulating joints. See, there's a V. There's a V right there. In between that V will always be a joint, I promise you. So check it out. So I see the little V. If I place my knife dead middle, magically, I can split that joint. Now I'm looking for the next V right here, and I can see that V. If I apply my knife right down the center of the V without any pressure, it disconnects perfectly. So as you get into, chicken or meat breakdown, or what we call fabrication, visually, you just want to look for V's because you're going to find the joint every single time. Another chef tip for you, see the little wing tips? Don't throw those away. I gather them, collect them in a zippy bag, freeze them, and I use them for chicken stock because they have a lot of gelatin and make a really luscious chicken stock. Chicken wings are prepped, my aromatics are prepped. Just need to wash my hands and get cooking. All right, let's get into the cook. So I basically have a large skillet. So I've got that to temperature. I just want to start with a little bit of high temperature oil. Peanut, canola, grapeseed, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not a fan of using olive oil in Asian cuisine because I think the flavors clash a little bit. We're gonna start by blooming the aromatics, the ginger, the scallions, and the garlic. I'm looking for a shimmer in the oil and I see that. You can always take that up to a wisp of white smoke if you wish, and here we go. You don't need the heat ripping hot because you still need to add the chicken wings to there and you don't want to burn these ingredients. And how spicy is totally up to you. I can kind of take the heat, so I'm gonna go a little aggressive, but when I make this dish for my kids, I don't put any heat at all, and that's okay. So the chilies are gonna go in, and I just wanna toss these aromatics around to start blooming them, to really start cooking through the fiber and getting to the essential oils. And if you are heat sensitive, do be careful. Don't sit over the stove because it'll cause a pretty high cough factor, so be careful. So I'm just seeing a little bit of browning on the edges. It's time to add our chicken. All braising means is you're gonna brown the protein first, in this case it's chicken, then we're gonna add liquid about halfway up, cover, and allow it to simmer. And what that's gonna do is actually get that chicken wing nice and tender. The browning sears the skin and makes it nice and kind of chewy. The liquid braising makes it nice and tender later. While the chicken's browning, I'm gonna pull the mushrooms and cut them up and marry them to the pan. I'm gonna wring those out just to get some moisture out of there. So because I'm gonna be braising for a little while, I'm not gonna cut these mushrooms too small. I'm just gonna cut them in half. They're gonna go into the chicken and into the braise. It's very critical that you take the time and brown your chicken wings because it's gonna really help with texture and flavor when this dish is finished. 3-cup chicken in Taiwan is very similar to like meatballs and marinara in an Italian house. It's taken very seriously. Every mom and grandma has their own version, but the 3 cups just mean the ingredients that go in. And the 3 cups are soy sauce, rice wine, and sesame oil in equal proportions. It's a very home-cooked dish, but people take it very seriously. Each family gets very personal about how they prepare their 3-cup chicken. So I know somewhere out there in the world, someone's mad at me for using chicken wings, probably gonna give me a hard time about my proportions, but I stand by my version of this dish. So in the Tila house, 3-cup chicken wings is the dish that everybody fights for. Once the wings come out of the braise, little Lamai, little Ren, myself, and Allie, it's like hungry hippos as to who's gonna be able to get as many chicken wings as possible, which usually ends up being me because I'm bigger. I'm kidding. Allie always wins because she's the boss. This recipe scales amazingly. This dish also holds phenomenally. So if you make a ton of these, whatever you're doing, it goes in the fridge, and you could even pull them and warm them in the oven or even the air fryer. It could just be hanging out on the weekends, or if you're enjoying sports, giant platter of 3-cup chicken is gonna make you a kitchen hero. This is exactly what I'm looking for. The chicken wings are brown, the aromatics are incredibly charred and smell delicious. Let's get our liquids in there to cool it down a little bit and start the braise. So soy sauce. I'm using a Chinese soy sauce this time. If you can't find it, just a Japanese soy sauce will be fine. And another Tila twist is I love adding a little sweet soy sauce, which has a good amount of molasses in there, and look at that. This really helps get that nice brown, kind of gooey coating. Soy sauce was the 1st cup. The 2nd cup is rice wine. I'm using sherry here. So like Chinese rice wine, sherry has a really delicious sweetness to it, and it's gonna pop these flavors so well. The last cup of sauce in 3-cup chicken is sesame oil. Traditionally, it is equal parts soy to rice wine to sesame oil, but this is where I'm gonna dial it back a little bit. I like a little less sesame oil because it's such a powerful flavor. A little bit of sugar, which increases that sticky factor again, which I love on wings. Don't forget our dried shiitake mushrooms. We're gonna give this a stir, cover, and let it braise for about 20 to 30 minutes. Look at that, it's already starting to look amazing. I wanna reduce this to a simmer from a boil. I'm gonna cover this and let this reduce for about 20 to 30 minutes. You have 2 simple missions. 1, you're gonna reduce the sauce into a glaze. 2, you wanna cook the chicken wings just through. So after 20 to 30 minutes, the chicken wings should be cooked through. That's what I'm talking about. You can actually see the level of the braise come down almost halfway. The chicken wings are nice and dark. I can tell that they're cooked through. Let's plate this. I like to add basil. It's a little tip that I learned from some Taiwanese friends. The Chinese do a version of this without basil, and a lot of Taiwanese families actually add basil, and I just want to wilt this basil right in at the end here. Basil adds an amazing kind of black licorice anise flavor, and I think this adds like another layer of flavor that makes this version so unique. It's also gonna remind you of that Thai dish, spicy basil chicken. The basil really adds an interesting note to this dish. So let's plate up. Today I'm gonna do a little bit of rice. Chicken wings are done. I wanna bring it onto a big old platter. Yes. I mean, a reminder, if you prefer chicken breast or chicken thigh, just make sure those pieces are to 2 to 3 inches. Brown them, braise them exactly the same way, and they're gonna come out this delicious. Final garnish here is a little bit of scallion. A heaping bowl of 3-cup chicken wings and some hot jasmine rice kind of is the perfect night in for me. All right, let's see how I did here. Look at that, glazed, sweet, savory. Khao Soi is hands down my favorite noodle dish to eat and cook. It's a curry noodle soup from northern Thailand, where my entire mom's side of the family is from, so it's very close to my heart. So I pulled some egg noodles out of the cooler. For Khao Soi, I'm just looking for an egg and wheat noodle, flatter the better. You're gonna find these in the deli section. They are fresh noodles, they're not dry pasta, but all I'm looking for is a whole wheat pasta that has eggs in it, that is flat in shape. So I want that chewiness, but the softness. If you can't get these noodles, an egg noodle will work really well, or a linguine would be perfect. Okay, I need that. And that. Okay, so Khao Soi is basically a curry noodle. So I needed these 2 specific curries. All Thai curries have the same base, like lemongrass and galanga and lime leaves, but they're all finished just a little differently. Yellow curry, or curry basically has a lot of turmeric, so it makes a beautiful kind of like saffrony yellow color. And Masaman curry has those warming spices like cinnamon and coriander. So these, in my opinion, are nice, sweet, warming curries. And of course, you can't have Thai food without fish sauce. Fish sauce is the primary salt and savory condiment in Thailand. Anywhere you have salt, you use fish sauce. All it is anchovies, salt, and water, but the umami pop that it brings is unparalleled. You know, Thai people were not the only ones to use anchovy water, so did the Romans and the Italians today. All right, so why do I love this dish so much? If you've never had it, I think the easiest thing to compare it to is ramen, right? This whole ramen phase that's happening right now. We love ramen because it's rich, it's got noodles in it, it's slippery and slurpy and savory, and this is all of those things and more, in my opinion. So I've got to marry some braised chicken thighs together with this curry, and basically that adds up to pure deliciousness. To start braising my chicken leg and thighs is very simple. You always want to braise or start a stock in cold water because that keeps the stock from getting really cloudy. So leg quarters in, I'm gonna start the heat now and let it come up gently, because if you let the heat come up gently, you're gonna keep this stock from getting super cloudy. I'm trying to accomplish a few things here. I wanna get the chicken thighs braised and tender. I wanna generate a really delicious stock all at the same time. And to do that, I need to add aromatics. The soul of Thai food is really summed up in 3 ingredients, and these 3 right here. It's galanga, Thai lime leaves, and lemongrass. The French have their mirepoix, their trinity, while the Thais have these 3. Thai lime leaves, they're flat, waxy, and have an incredible amount of citrus aromatics in there, so don't overthink it. Just tear them up gently and get them right into the water. Next, lemongrass. There's few kind of ingredients in life that give you such intense aromatics. If I was kind of incorporating this into food, I'd cut it down really small, but I'm just trying to extract flavor. And the way you extract flavor is just to create a ton of surface area into that kind of simmering sauce. So I'm really just kind of opening them up with quarter turns, and then using the back of my knife to really kind of break apart those cells and get those aromatics going on. So a good chef tip is don't cut these down into tiny pieces because they're a pain to fish out later. You just want to create kind of a T-cut in here, get the back of that knife and beat it up a little bit. Those go right in. All right, lastly, galanga. Pretty often confused for ginger. Smells nothing like it, tastes nothing like it. If you've never had it, it's a very peppery and piney taste. And because again, we're incorporating into stock, I'm not gonna overthink it. I know a lot of you are wondering, how do I get this stuff? I don't have the Asian market close to me. You can actually order these online in their dry form and they're perfect for this stock. All right, so with garlic in stocks, don't overthink it, all right? Again, you wanna expose enough garlic flavor. So to me, that just means cutting this in half, having 2 beautiful pieces with all that garlic flavor exposed so it's easy to fish out later, and those go right in. I think you're getting the common theme here. When making stock, do not get meticulous in your knife cuts. With shallots, I'm slicing it up skin and all right? Because I'll pull them out later. I'm not worried about that. Now, you've gotta ask yourself, how spicy are you? Well, I'm pretty darn spicy, and these Thai chilies are also pretty darn spicy. So I gotta give you a word of warning here. 1 Thai chili pepper is gonna give you lots of heat already. 2 is gonna be like, wait a minute, and 3 is gonna be like, yo, like you better be ready because your head is gonna sweat. I'm gonna go for all 3 today because I like it really hot. I'm gonna just make 1 cut in. I'm gonna leave the seeds in and all, and I'm gonna leave the stems on because I do want to be able to fish them out later. So the goal of this stock is basically to get those chicken leg thighs braised, create a very rich kind of stock to marry into the curry. So this is gonna go, I'll bring that to a simmer, and then just let that cruise until those chicken thighs are cooked, not necessarily falling apart, but I do want them pretty soft because we need them to hold up in the curry. And speaking of curry, I'm gonna show you how to make really great Thai curry. Now, curry is kind of all the same base, meaning, remember that Thai trinity? All that becomes the base of most curries. It's what you finish the curry with that determines what it is. So let me explain. So to the base, if we added red chilies, you've made red curry paste. If you add green chilies, you've made green, et cetera, et cetera. But what makes massaman special is the herbs and spices that go into it. There's cinnamon, there's some cardamom. So it gives you a really kind of sweet herbaceous note. And then I'm gonna back that up with yellow curry paste because it has a very high level of cumin in it. So you know the warming spices you love about Indian food? That's all in here. I like cooking curry in something that's very wide because you're gonna need to reduce. And anytime you have a lot of surface area, you're gonna get a lot of reduction. While that pan is heating up, I'm gonna show you what I'm always looking for in coconut milk. Never shake the can of coconut milk, even though the can tells you to. I think we just do that because 90% of the applications of coconut milk require like this balanced liquidy coconut milk. But for curry, don't shake the can and look at what you get on top. This beautiful layer of pure coconut oil. So another grandma tip for you, use that coconut fat as a frying medium for your curry paste. So I'm just taking the top of the coconut cream and you already can smell kind of how fragrant it is. You're gonna go 50-50, the yellow curry paste and the massaman curry paste. And I want you to work this like a roux. Check it out. You're gonna use the coconut fat and then actually fry up the curry paste. Now, What this is doing is very similar to sauteing onions and garlic. It's really kind of expressing the flavors, sweetening it up, the caramelization. There's a lot happening here, and this is how you get down to very delicious curry. When I teach curry, what I teach people is you want to fry this till you get to that point where you're like, oh man, I think it's gonna burn, but it's not burnt yet. So it gets super fragrant and super sweet. It almost looks like peanut butter in the pan, and I'm just about there, okay? Kind of that moment where like, if I go 30 more seconds, I'm gonna be like, oh no, it's too much. So I'm gonna have the rest of the coconut milk at the ready. And once I hit that magic fragrant moment, right, and I'm almost there, now you're allowed to stir that coconut milk and get it right in there. And I'm gonna reserve a little to kind of give me a little bit of cushion, right, in case I need to thicken it up later. Do you remember that Thai lime leaf? Let me show you a very cool cut to incorporate lime leaves into curry. I'm gonna put them on top of each other. I'm gonna roll them up really tightly. The French would call this chiffonade. The Thai would actually call this soy, kind of like Khao Soi. I'll explain that in a moment. I'm gonna take my knife and do a very, very fine pass. It's almost like blades of grass. And this takes a little bit of practice. So if you're not comfortable, just use scissors. Cut it to as wide as you're comfortable. And we call that, soy lime leaves. So soy just means to tear into strips or to cut, very similar to the noodles that we're gonna play with later. So those beautifully soyed lime leaves are going to marry their citrus aromatics into this curry and really bring a ton of flavor. So all we're doing now is reduction, meaning I need to reduce this curry until it coats the back of a spoon. And what that does is creates that velvety kind of mouthfeel, that temperature, that beautiful kind of coating that's gonna marry into the noodles. Now that the curry and the coconut milk are reducing, we want to bathe those chicken leg thighs in here to get them coated and get that curry flavor happening. So I'm gently gonna fish out these thighs because I want to keep them intact as possible because they're gonna look gorgeous swimming in curry. And then marry this to the curry sauce. And if I catch a little chili, well, whoops, it's just too bad. We're gonna have to make this spicy. Now reserve this stock because the stock is going to be combined into the curry to kind of thin this out and really complete that flavor. So that's in there. I want to coat the thighs in the curry and just let them simmer all together. It's kind of like that French butter basting, but I'm curry basting here. So Khao Soi is indigenous to northern Thailand, where my mom's side of the family came from. Khao Soi literally translates to slivered rice noodles. Khao means rice, soy, as you saw, means to cut into thin strips. This is a very indigenous dish shared between all the cultures from the north, and every time that smell of spices and curry kind of permeates, it brings me back and it reminds me of my grandmother. So this is a very kind of a, when you get those sense memories that dig into your brain, this dish reminds me a lot of my grandma. So it honors her, and I miss her. So I'm gonna show you how she did it so we can enjoy it together. So we're gonna let these chicken leg thighs braise away. I'm gonna finish cutting my garnishes to kind of plate up the Khao Soi. The garnishes are very, very simple. We've got some scallions, and the way I like to cut scallions is always kind of cut them in half, and I'm gonna do a bias thin slice on them. I'm not going too extreme because I don't want super long pieces. I just want nice kind of tight, really pretty scallions in the dish. There you go. Next are gonna be shallots. I want diced shallots here. So I start shallots all the same way. I take the tip and I take a little bit of the root off. I cut them in half and then peel them into half, just like I do onions. So dice, put them on the half. I want a 1/4 inch cut in this way. I'm gonna do 1/4 inch slices here, and then line them all up and do my final 1/4 inch cut, and I should have some even small dices. There it is. The last ingredient is the fun one. It's just pickled mustard greens. It's a very common green that's eaten in Southeast Asia, and these have just been pickled, just like you pickle cucumbers. Salt, vinegar, water, and just a lot of thyme. Thyme is in time. not the herb time. And since these are garnishes, I just want to cut them all into small pieces, and they're all going to be floated on top of the Khao Soi to kind of choose your own adventure, which is another fun thing about Thai food. I'm going to make a delicious Khao Soi, but the diner's going to be able to kind of pick his or her way of eating it. Some might like a lot of shallots, some might like 0 shallots, but it really kind of completes the meal and also the texture of the dish. So now it's time to deal with these noodles. They are egg noodles, they are raw, so we need to cook them. The fun thing is we're gonna do them 2 ways, right? We have some boiling water to actually just cook them al dente, just like any pasta. And then I've got a little bit of frying oil as well, because we're gonna want them crispy. And as you can see, they're raw, they're coated in a little bit of fine flour, and these need to be cooked up. So for the boiling, very simple, friends. I've got some water up. Let's salt that to get some flavor in there. And we're gonna start this batch cooking. So on this side, we've got the noodles just boiling away. And on this side, I'm bringing just frying oil, vegetable, canola, any of the oils you wanna fry it with, up to about 350, 365. And we're gonna loosen them on the board again. And we're just gonna drop them in very small batches until they cook up GBD. That's golden brown and delicious. You know, the most important thing is the oil's at that right temperature. And just make sure you do it in small batches. And they're very thin noodles, so they're gonna kind of brown up really quickly, so you wanna keep your eye on them. So I just wanna loosen them up that first minute so they don't kind of stick together, and then I'm just gonna let them go. As you can see, they're lifting up, they're cooking from the bottom, so once they kind of initially set, we're gonna do 1 turn, and then we're gonna let them brown up, and then they're done. All right, so the bottoms are nice and light brown, and this last browning is literally gonna take like 10 seconds. Again, GBD is golden brown delicious, not golden burnt and not delicious. So, all right, let's let those chill out for a minute. Crispy noodles, check. The soft noodles, almost there. This is the perfect time to season the Khao Soi. So remember, in Thai food, we're going for hot, sour, salty, sweet, and savory. I've got the hot already in there. For salty, we're gonna do a little bit of fish sauce. We need the acid to come from the tamarind. I need a little sweet, which is gonna be from sugar. And by itself, I mean, this would be a phenomenal chicken curry. I mean, you could stop here, slam this over some beautifully cooked jasmine rice and kind of call it a day. But to really make this Khao Soi, which is the curry soup, I'm gonna add this gorgeous stock that we braised our chicken in. And if you get some hitchhikers like a little lemongrass and lime leaf, don't freak out, man. That's just extra deliciousness. Just tell your guests that it's in there so they can expect it. And there it is, right there. I wanna make sure to incorporate the stock into the curry to make this that kind of perfect curry soup noodle texture. I want it kind of velvety, not too thin, not too thick. And now it's time to build the Khao Soi bowls. So I wanna start with my noodles. I'm gonna drain these very well. If you're holding these for any amount of time, just give them a rinse in cold water, let them drain until you're ready. For me, I'm gonna go right in and serve immediately. It's time for the chicken leg thigh. Oh man, what a meal. Ladle in some of that unctuous curry soup. Can't think of a better word. I mean, that word kind of sums it up for me because it's creamy and savory all at the same time. We're gonna apply garnishes. Shallots are earthy. The mustard greens are sour. We're gonna do some of those crispy noodles. And if you're kind of serving individuals, you could create like a little platter of all of the garnishes and people can kind of choose their own adventure, which makes it fun. I'm gonna take this bowl down as soon as we're done here, so this is all mine. And finally, some cilantro, or as they say, coriander leaves. And that's it, friends. It's everything I want in a bowl. It's my last meal, my favorite meal. It is heaven in a bowl. Let's give this a shot. It's creamy from the coconut milk. It's got such depth of flavor from that curry paste. I hope next time you get a craving for curry, you just go for it and you make Khao Soi. This really brings me back to times with my family. It is my favorite noodle dish. I hope it becomes yours. Today I'm making 2 Filipino favorites, chicken adobo, which is a delicious braised dish, and lumpia, tiny deep fried egg rolls that are totally addicting. All right, cane vinegar, water, chestnuts. So Filipino food is delicious, but Filipino chefs are masters at vinegar. So this is sugar cane vinegar. So they crush crush the sugar cane, make juice from it, and then ferment it into vinegar. So you're gonna have these like floral notes to it. It's gonna have these sugar cane notes. This really is a fun vinegar if you've never played with it. Now, water chestnuts have kind of gotten a bad name over the years. People are using it to kind of just for filler. I mean, let's celebrate the water chestnut. It is crunchy, it is sweet. It is such an underrated ingredient. I'm gonna show you how to make it a star. So the last thing I need are these lumpia wrappers. Now they might look like egg roll wrappers, but they're actually thinner and they're more like a pastry skin than a noodle sheet. In essence, what an egg roll wrapper is. They fry up super light and crispy, and if you can get them at the Asian store, they'll be in the freezer section or the deli section. So to get started with the adobo, I'm using legs and thighs because I just like dark meat. I think they're a little more tender, there's more flavor, but if you want to use breast, just use whole chicken breast. So I need to start by marinating these chicken thighs. But before that, I do want to trim off any excess fat or skin that I don't need. So what I usually do is I'll kind of just examine both sides to see if I have a lot of skin that comes off kind of where it connects to the chicken. This is kind of what I'm talking about right here. On the underside of the chicken thighs, if you see these little flaps of skin and fat, I just trim them off. Do not throw these away, by the way. I basically collect them all and I'll slowly render and fry them to kind of make my own little popcorn chicken. I kind of call that the chef's privilege. No one wants it. I absolutely want it, and I'll snack on them kind of through service. That's nice and clean. I can see a little flap there. I'm gonna trim that. Yeah, this one's got a lot of fat and skin on it, and I'm really trimming because that's just gonna give me kind of excess fat that I don't need in the final adobo, but that's gonna be super delicious deep fried. So this is gonna be our marinade vessel. I really like these shallow rectangular glass vessels because in a bowl you get way too much marinade, so you're wasting a lot of ingredients. This is gonna give me the perfect amount of marinade just to cover the chicken. All right, so I'm switching over to soy sauce, so it's time to wash my hands. So this can disappear and we can focus on just the leg thighs. The marinade is really simple. I'm starting with 6 cloves of garlic, but to get the flavor of the garlic, I do want to break them up a little bit. And I'm just going to basically take flat part of my knife and just lean until I hear a snap. Listen, perfect. I'm not trying to break this up into a ton of pieces. I just want them to expose all their flavor. And that's it right there. We're gonna use this marinade again in the actual making of the adobo when we take it to the braise. Next, it's just soy sauce. I'm using regular old soy sauce here. I wanna get enough to actually cover the chicken, so don't be scared if you have to remove the little kind of spout there. This does a few things. We're gonna get a lot of flavor into these leg thighs before we actually sear them off and braise them. All right, I wanna make sure I've got garlic kind of swimming. I wanna make sure I have enough soy sauce to get the marinade going. So I'm simply just gonna cover these tightly with a little plastic wrap and let them hang out in the fridge for about 30 minutes. So my adventure into Filipino food is a fun one. So, you know, we had the first Thai grocery store in America, started in the 70s, but the neighborhood started shifting in the 90s. Our little Thai grocery store started to shift into a Filipino grocery store. The neighborhood shifted, we had to really convert from a Thai market to a Filipino market, and we had this phenomenal group of caterers. You know, I called them my aunties, my Filipino aunties. What they did over the course of a decade was give me kind of personal one-on-one food coaching. I started to learn all these new Filipino ingredients. Instead of calling it fish sauce, I called it patis. Instead of Thai shrimp paste, I started to learn bagoong. And then I needed to learn pastry skins and lumpia and adobo. It was really fun kind of spending that decade hanging out with my Filipino aunties and learning Filipino food. So as you can see, the soy sauce has really penetrated the skin and the actual chicken. The garlic is married in nicely. The next thing we have to do is actually get these frying. The enemy of frying is moisture. So what I want to do is pat these dry while I get this pan really hot. So anytime you're working with raw proteins, paper towels are my best friends because the marinade has done its job. The soy sauce is inside the chicken, so I want to try to get the exterior as dry as possible. You know, adobo is like so many dishes from around the world that was really created through necessity. You know, in the Philippines, like a lot of Southeast Asia, weather's really hot. So the way to preserve anything usually is either salting, drying, or pickling, and the use of vinegar in this dish actually kind of raises the pH and allows you to hold this chicken dish for a lot longer. So it really was a preservation method turned into something very delicious. So I've got a braising pan, which in my opinion is something that holds heat very well, has a decent coating on the bottom where I can really kind of let this start to simmer without it sticking to anything. I'm just gonna use high temperature, low flavor oil, peanut, canola, grapeseed, any of those work great. And I want to start by rendering the fat out of these and getting a nice browning. And I'm being very deliberate about getting this as dry as possible. I actually like to start with the skin side down. Use the sides of the pan so you get heat from two sides. So you want to tuck up those chicken thighs as tight to the pan as possible. And another good tip, anytime you're stovetop frying, is if you feel you're getting a lot of splash of oil, you can use a paper towel and tongs to kind of dab out the excess. All right, I'm gonna let that brown up really well as I tidy up a bit. I wanna reserve these garlic cloves because they're gonna end up going back into the adobo. So my job right now is to just be thoughtful about getting these brown and not overcooking them. I would leave them alone for probably the first 2 or 3 minutes, just so the skin can sear. At that point, it's gonna be a little sticky, and then after it sears and cauterizes, it's gonna lift up really nicely on its own. That's what I'm talking about right there. Wow, the soy sauce really helps the caramelization of this chicken. That one's ready to go. I mean, you don't want to rush this. Let that browning occur because browning means flavor all the way around. And again, use the little paper towel trick if you're getting too much splatter. Because you really just need enough oil to sear the skins and no more. I want to get as much of the surface area brown as possible because I'm prepping these skins to braise, meaning I'm going to introduce a lot of liquid in there. So the tighter and the crispier the skin is now, it's gonna hold through that long process of moist cooking. It's time for aromatics. So these are fresh bay leaves out of my garden. If you don't have fresh, you could use dry. So let's get those in there crackling. You hear that? That bay leaf is talking to me, telling me it's happy. I want some peppercorns in there. And my real simple technique is just to get a pan and crack them open. You hear that? Just a little loosening to get all those essential oils out. I'm gonna add those to the pan. And what I'm doing is blooming those herbs and spices in there to really maximize their flavor. I've got both sides of the chicken brown. We're gonna pour in our reserve marinade with those garlic cloves. And to accomplish a braise, I need a liquid medium. And my liquid medium here is going to be chicken stock. A braise is a very specific method of cooking. It means you don't want that liquid to go further than about halfway up. You want to leave some of the chicken exposed. So what I need to do now is cover this tightly and let it simmer for about 40 minutes. And that's going to allow the chicken to really tighten up and marry all those delicious flavors in there. All right, it's time to work on the lumpia. And all that really means is bringing together a lot of vegetables, herbs, and protein to make a delicious filling. I'm gonna start by opening the can of water chestnuts. I only need 4 ounces. This is an 8-ounce can, so I'm gonna drain out the water. For these lumpia, I'm gonna try to process these ingredients down into almost a smooth paste. Water chestnuts done, I'm just gonna go through all these various vegetables pretty quickly because the machine's gonna handle the rest. So scallions in half lengthwise. Now I'm just gonna cut them into smalls. Next, we're gonna do onion. I only need 1/4 of an onion, so I'm gonna take 1/4 peel. I'm just gonna cut it into a small dice so the food processor can take it even finer. Same thing, mushrooms. With these shiitake mushrooms, I'm just gonna take the stems out and just use the caps. And I'll gather them, give them a 1/4 churn, and then fine dice them. I know it feels like a lot of work, but it really is worth it to get a very smooth lumpia farce or filling. Garlic, just gonna give it a smash, and then just a mincing pass. And to round out the herbs and vegetables, just a little bit of shrimp and some ground pork. So looking at my ingredients, I think the shrimp, because of their shape and size, are gonna take a little effort, so I'm gonna put them in first. I wanna do it in pulses because any of the large pieces, during that pause and the pulse, it drops down to get chopped. So the shrimp is tiny, but not to where it's paste yet. That's good for me. I'm gonna dump that into the bowl. And I'm processing kind of in reverse order. Whatever takes more effort goes in first. And no need to clean the bowl in between because it's all gonna end up together anyway. I'm gonna add all the vegetables and herbs now. And if you have a very large food processor that will accommodate everything, just do it all in one. Let's pulse this up. So to this, I'm actually gonna add some of the pork now because I think I can work those all together. Oh, it'll fit all of it. Perfect. And if I get any pieces that are not getting down to the blade, I'm just gonna give it a little assist with the spoon. Perfect. It's very similar to making a meatball, except we're gonna put that stuffing into an egg roll. I'm gonna get the food processor out of the way and finish seasoning in the bowl on the cutting board. So here's what I'm gonna need for seasoning. Of course, fish sauce, as they would say, patis in Tagalog. Soy sauce, like all delicious Southeast Asian food, it's kind of the 5 flavor rule. So we want a little sweet with the savory and the salty, the sour and the heat, and then just a pinch of white pepper. So that's it for seasonings. I'm gonna work this together now until all of the ingredients are one and all of the flavors are together. If you're not gonna use the filling immediately to make lumpia, cover this tightly and put it in the fridge, but I'm going right for it. We're gonna start building our lumpias right now. So these are the lumpia wrappers we picked up, and they are kind of moisture sensitive, meaning you don't want them to be opened and just left out in the air too long because they will dry out. So open these very, very close to building your lumpias. And as you can see, they're in a very, very tight cluster. So what I like to do is kind of pull maybe a third or halfway in and then work that way versus trying to peel that perfect layer from the top. So pull that. I'm gonna start with this piece as my first sheet. And for the traditional lumpia, it's 1 sheet per egg roll or per lumpia. Just like that. There we go. So I've got the filling. I've got my wrappers. Now I just need a little medium to kind of glue this all together. An egg is gonna be the perfect medium. So lumpias are really fun to make. Unlike Chinese egg rolls, where you're trying to make this giant log of filling and then roll it over, what I like to do is to make a nice kind of flat paste of filling that go about 1/3 of the way up. Once you've got 1/3 coverage, I'm actually gonna roll over and then pull back and gather the filling, like so. And then I'm just going to tuck and roll, making sure there's no air in this egg roll. And then once I'm at the point where I have about a 2-inch lip, I'm gonna take some of that egg to make a little bit of glue. And then watch what I do. I'm gonna pinch just the ends, grab any excess filling there, and then close it up. And I'm gonna let it rest on that pleat side so it adheres to the roll, and I'm good to go. So the lumpias are made and it's time to fry. So I'm frying always in a high temperature, low flavor oil, peanut, canola, grapeseed, etc. 350 to 365, and I'm gonna lower these in slowly. What I'm looking for is the oil to kind of start that bubbling, and I've got that. And then I'm gonna let it go. Every time you add something cold into the oil, it brings the temperature down. So I would cook these in batches as you go. And the only way to really know your oil temperature is a thermometer. I've always got one handy to check meat temperatures and to check oil frying temperatures. So because these are so thin, they're gonna cook up really quickly. So I'm looking for a golden brown shell, and by the time they get there, I know that the shrimp and the pork are gonna be cooked through. If you're ever in doubt and you wanna make sure your food's safe, just stick the thermometer inside the egg roll, and if you hit 165 degrees, you're perfectly safe. If you're not gonna eat them right away, you can actually freeze them raw. You can actually freeze them cooked as well, and then to bring them back, I just throw the cooked frozen lumpia right into an air fryer for about 8 to 10 minutes, and they are perfect. So they make the perfect snack for my kids. If I'm just jonesing for a crispy lumpia, I like to cook them, hold them frozen after cook, and just pop them in the air fryer or the oven or the toaster oven. So that's what I'm looking for right there. Golden brown, delicious. I'm gonna drain it right onto the rack. All right, so lumpias are done. I'm gonna let them drain on the rack. I'm gonna finish my adobo, and let's put this all together. I mean, look at that. The chickens are braised. You can see it kind of tight off the bone, so I know it's gonna have that nice kind of hole on the mouthfeel. Just to finish, I'm gonna add a few ingredients. Our cane vinegar. Remember, the Filipinos are masters of vinegar. The adobo was originally a way to preserve meat for long periods of time. Next, I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar. And finally, to kind of pull it all together, I'm gonna add a little cornstarch slurry. And all the slurry is equal parts cornstarch and water. And as I mix it, and the cornstarch comes to a simmer and hits that 180-degree mark, this is gonna pull together into a really beautiful, almost sticky sauce, which coats rice beautifully. The flavor that you're chasing is a really nice balance between savoriness with just a hint of acid, which brightens it, and then the sugar underneath really gives it almost like a Chinese 5-spice kind of stew flavor. So let me show you how to put this Filipino feast together. I'm gonna serve the lumpias long on this platter, and I'm gonna show you a very simple sauce that's made up of 2 ingredients. So for the sauce, I love this sweet chili sauce, but I think I want a little more tang in there to really kind of pay that homage to that delicious kind of acidity in the adobo. So I'm gonna back that up with just a little more cane vinegar and stir that together. And for the adobo, I'm gonna do a family style plate and being very gentle to not break up those leg thighs. The bay leaf, the garlic, the peppercorns, you know, they added a lot of flavor. I just want to leave them in. Just make sure to warn your guests, the bay leaves are not to be eaten. They're more decoration now. My favorite part of cooking, tasting. Look at that. It's tender. It's really succulent is the word. And just that hit of acid really rounds out this dish. And of course with the lumpia, that's what I want. Right there, crispy outside, soft, tender on the inside. Today is all about orange chicken, and I'm throwing in a side of fried rice. Chicken powder is really the secret of every single Chinese restaurant in America. It's actually this that gives you saltiness and savoriness, not really soy sauce. For ultimate crispy orange chicken, get tempura flour. It's a mix of all-purpose flour and cornstarch. It fries up super crispy, but a little light. I can get a little nerdy, but just know this is the stuff. First things first, let's make our fried rice. The secret to great fried rice is using day-old rice. This is just cooked rice, hanging out in the fridge. It's dry. If you are using fresh rice, just make sure it's cool, dry, ready to go in the pan. I'm gonna start with some eggs. Another really great tip that Grandma taught me, fresh eggs make fluffy fried rice, and I'll explain that to you here in a second. 2 eggs, just give it a good whisk so it's nice and even. Starting the pan with some high temperature oil. Now you gotta coordinate really quickly here. It's gonna be eggs and then rice right into the eggs. Don't let your eggs set. While those eggs are still wet, pour your rice right into the eggs. And then literally, you're gonna be coating the rice with egg. What's happening is the eggs are coating the rice and it creates this naturally non-stick surface because egg has protein, but it also has a little bit of fat. And you're using that fat from the eggs versus putting a ton of oil in to the pan. As that is cooking, I can put a little onion. So really great fried rice should not be dark and full of soy sauce. Here's the tip, a touch of sugar, a little bit of chicken powder, and just enough soy sauce to kind of give that soy aroma, but not make it dark and heavy and salty. A lot of the salt from this dish is actually coming from the chicken powder. This is really great Hong Kong style fried rice, meaning eggy, light, fluffy. This is the fried rice that my grandma taught me how to make a bazillion times growing up. And you don't see this style often, but I think it's one of the best ways to cook and eat fried rice. And then I'm gonna add some scallions, and this is the perfect side of fried rice for the orange chicken. Visually, what you're looking for is the egg to be cooked through and the rice to be nice and fluffy. And I'm gonna hold this in the oven, but you can put this in a casserole dish or a bowl and just have it hanging out till you're ready to eat orange chicken. So to get some vegetation into this dish, I wanna cook off some broccoli, and I'm gonna use my buddy Chef Mike, meaning Chef Microwave. Yeah, I know, it's cheesy, but effective. I've got broccoli florets in the bowl, a little bit of water in here. I'm just gonna season this and then cover it with plastic. And I'm gonna ask Chef Mike to cook this on high for 3 minutes, and I'm good to go. All right, so let's get to the orange chicken part, and I'm gonna start with the sauce. I mean, everyone's got love for this dish. You go to the mall, you've eaten this about a bazillion times, but I wanted to make my elevated version that actually has orange in it. Now, most people don't actually put any orange juice in their orange chicken, but I do, so let's start with that. So to that, we're gonna add sugar, soy sauce, little paprika, oyster sauce, hoisin sauce, and I'm gonna make a little slurry with my vinegar, a little rice vinegar. So I've added the cornstarch to the vinegar. I need to get it stirred around to activate it. So visually what I'm looking for is the bubbles to start getting smaller and smaller. That means the cornstarch is activating and the sauce is thickening into a nice glaze. So I'm just gonna reserve the sauce and move on to the chicken. So to prep the chicken, I've got chicken thighs and tempura flour. I'm using chicken thighs because it's more moist and I get way more flavor out of it. The nugget won't dry when you fry it. I'm really just going for about 1 to 1.5 inch cubes. So tempura flour is doing double duty. The first thing it's gonna do is dredge the chicken. And all that means is I wanna get enough flour on the chicken so it'll hold on to the batter. Next, I'm gonna add some water to the rest of the tempura flour to make a nice thin batter, like a pancake batter. Perfect, so this is looking to me like beautiful pancake batter. You wanna make sure your oil is at 375 degrees before you start frying, because the magic number is 350. When you put food in frying oil, it brings down the temperature. And what I'm doing is I'm dropping the nuggets into the batter, letting them really pick up a good amount of batter and get it right in. You wanna fry these just a few pieces at a time. You wanna come in with the spider to kind of separate any nuggets that are sticking together. I'm gonna cook these until they're GBD, golden brown delicious, and let them drain on a wire rack. So the chicken is super crispy. It's golden brown delicious. I'm gonna let the chicken rest on the wire rack, drain off a little bit, and set up the final phase, which is the stir fry. I'm starting with a hot pan and put a little oil in it. So like most stir fries, you're gonna go aromatics, garlic, ginger, and I'm gonna add the chicken to the pan. A little bit of onion, scallions. Because the glaze is sugar-based, it's not gonna penetrate and sog out the chicken. It's just gonna sit on top. It's gonna marry onto all that crispiness. I'm not really worried about the chicken being cooked through because I've already fried it. So I'm really just trying to get a nice even coating here. Once everything's coated, I'm ready to marry the rice and the orange chicken. I can't make this dish because I always get hungry and I want to eat it immediately. So now it's time to plate up. I'm gonna start with the fried rice that we made, bringing the orange chicken to the game. Oh yeah, that glaze is incredible. And then dot it with our broccoli. Dude, I'm gonna monster this whole plate. I'll see you later. Go, get out of here. Today, we're making one of my favorite dishes, General Tso's chicken. There's a lot of debate about authenticity. I just want you to throw that all away. I'm an Asian kid born in America, so you know what? This dish is authentic to me. It's one of those kind of super craveable dishes that has the sweet and the crunchy and the savory all in it, and it's really not that hard to make, so let's get into it. So there's gonna be a little bit of prep here, but the first thing you wanna do is get a fryer ready. So I've got oil in a Dutch oven. You're gonna preheat that to 375 degrees. So let's start with the chopping stuff. We're gonna do our vegetable prep first, then make our sauce, prep our chicken, and then we stir fry it all up. It's not as hard as you think. So knife work, let's get into it. I like to do all my knife work all at once, so it's kind of set and out of the way. All right, so I'm gonna start with the classic Chinese aromatics, ginger and garlic. And now, the final step is stir fry. which means like don't get too delicate with it. I don't want you to overly finely mince anything, right? Just simply separate the garlic cloves. I love to cut off the end or the root side of the garlic so the garlic falls apart, and now I've got all the cloves that I need. And simply just lay your knife on top of a clove and just lean. All right? You don't need to start getting crazy and smashing until you feel comfortable. And check it out, if you lean on the garlic with the root side off, the skin falls right out. It's kind of magical. Okay, so I'm just gonna do one more here. If you're comfortable after the lean, just give it a little tap. And with a little gentle tap, the garlic just releases because there's some natural garlic oil between the skin and the actual clove. So there you go. I like to kind of clean as I go because my wife gets super mad when I leave a giant pile of schmutz and craziness. So I'd like you to do the same. Have a dump bowl ready, have a moist towel so you can always kind of clean up as you go. With the garlic cloves already semi-smashed, I'm just gonna like flatten them all out because flat things cut very simply. And all I'm doing is doing a very kind of loose, maybe 1/4 inch pass. The wok's gonna get up to like 400 degrees, so don't over mince this. As you can see, they're not 100% even, but they're kind of in that smaller mince territory. And that's all you want for most of your Chinese garlic. For any garlic that's gonna go into the wok right there. Garlic oil tends to get sticky, so a moist towel is going to be your best friend. Anytime you feel like the board or your knife is getting a little sticky because of oils and stuff, just take a moist towel and wipe them all down. All right, ginger, one of my favorite things, and this is where you can kind of show off to your friends. Take the big pieces of ginger and break them into smaller fingers, all right? That's the first step. Second step is to make sure you square the gingers off. Anything that's on your board that's round and will roll will probably end up getting you cut one day. So tame it, make it behave. Take the edge of your knife and with slight pressure, I just want you to rotate your ginger around, and that's how you easily peel. So again, flat cut, and then really light pressure. I'm just literally leaning the blade against the ginger, and that's how you peel your ginger. I'll do one more really, really quickly. But again, so square off ends, and then bring the blade over. And I know those little nubs kind of stick out, just cut around them. But I know my grandma would be like, you're wasting ginger. But I'm like, yo, grandma, ginger's cheap, it's plentiful. This isn't China in the 1940s, so don't freak out. Okay, cool. Again, I'm a knife wiper because clean knives also keep you from getting cut. If you remember the Jet Tila rhyme, a tile becomes a slice becomes a dice. Yes, I have a whole room of people in here that are amazing. Hey guys, everybody please. A tile becomes a slice.
A tile becomes a slice.
A slice becomes a dice.
A slice becomes a dice.
I'm hearing you at home as well, okay? So get your tiles nice and thin. These are 1/8 inch tiles right here. And again, with a little practice, y'all, this is easy. This is not hard. So a tile now is going to become a slice, 1/8 inch again. And it doesn't have to be super even. I'm not going to pull a micrometer on it and freak out. But as long as it's small, because the more even it is, the more even it's going to cook. And you're going to get a beautiful kind of, even things cook better. All right, and also even things look awesome in the pan. So now the slice becomes a dice. And I'm just going 1/8 inch. You know, you don't want to go too small. If you wanted to leave it kind of long, that's fine too. So I'm going to go with minced here. All right, you guys hanging in there? So ginger, garlic. Let's move on to onion, shall we? Okay, onions. I need a half an onion for this recipe. I start all onions the same. I want you to take the top of an onion off and the bottom of the onion off. And I know people are gonna be like, but you need the bottom. Just calm down. I've cut a bazillion pounds of onions in my life. To get fast, you need a half of the onion. And I peel my onions in the halves because they come off easier, just like that, you see. And even if I'm not using both halves of this onion, I'm gonna peel both and put one away because that should be your workflow in any kitchen. You do one thing all the way through and then you move on to the next thing. So flat part of the onion on the board, flat knife, just like a little table. I don't want to go all the way through. Leave that connected right on the end there. And then large dice to me is about 3/4 inch. So as you can see, I'm leaving the onion connected right on the end. Boom, there's one, and then I can go ahead and finish. There it is right there. So as for the broccoli florets, I'm cutting it off the entire kind of broccoli tree. I'm actually looking for where the florets start to kind of separate, and just one clean cut will kind of separate all the florets, just like that. Simply break your florets into reasonable pieces, kind of like, you know, maybe 2 inch, and if they're a lot larger, like this guy right here, just break them all up. Most of them are going to be perfect. I'll probably need to cut one big old tree in half or in quarters. That's totally okay. And that goes right into the bowl. So I just kind of like to cut where the branches start to separate, break them apart. Find one of those two big pieces, and I'm good to go. You guys ever cook with Chef Mike? I think you do. When I was a kid in restaurants, we would use the microwave. But because we were a display open kitchen, we wouldn't want to say the word microwave in a pro kitchen. So it'd be like, yo, Jet, can you give this to Chef Mike for a minute? So Chef Mike is gonna handle your broccoli. I wanna cook the broccoli in a microwave for a few reasons, right? It's gonna give me that perfect steam without bringing out a giant pot of water and having to flash boil and shock. Chef Mike's gonna take care of it a lot faster. 2 to 3 tablespoons of water. Cover tightly to create some steam. And let's give this to Chef Mike for 2 minutes. Last veg to cut is going to be scallions. You just want to run them underwater, drain them, and I like to line up all my scallions together, root to root. Take off about 1/4 inch above the root. Turn over and find where they all line up perfectly. And then that's where you want to make your cut. That'll go into our toss bin, which will be for stock or something. And you're not really done. If you see like loose leaves, just pull off any loose leaves. And that to me is a prep scallion. Whites or greens, what do we use? We use it all. It makes no sense to me to chuck any of it. So I like to actually make the cut where the whites are whites and the greens are greens. What you're gonna do is something called bias slice. I just want you to angle the knife. So this is perpendicular. This is angled, and just so that just means bias cut, y'all. So just give me a nice bias cut. And there's no difference in flavor, but man, does that look good. In restaurants, we call that perception of value, and that just means I can charge you more money when I send this to you. So the whites look like that, and I'll do the same thing with the greens. The whites are a little more pungent and spicy, and I want that, right? And the greens are a little more sweet and mild, and it's nice to have that difference sometimes. Okay, scallions are done. I've cut everything that's vegetable first, and now I'm gonna move on to protein. Never go the other way because of cross-contamination. I have chicken thighs here. Now, these are super clean thighs. I'm okay with rinsing chicken thighs, and then what you always wanna do is take clean paper towels. These are single use, and what you wanna do is just pat them down, and this gets thrown away. So these are just basically deboned, skinless chicken thighs. And I want to cut them into about 3/4 to 1 inch cube. And we've all eaten kind of that General Tso's sweet and sour orange chicken. It's about a nugget. You have to account for the batter that you're going to put on. That's going to add some size. So I'll take a chicken thigh and I'll cut it in half first. So I'm cutting it in half, and then I'm gonna go into a 1 inch dice, because by the time it picks up the batter and fries into a crispy nugget, it's gonna end up being 2 inches, all right? Anything bigger than that just kind of eats awkwardly. I'm always thinking about, what am I eating General Tso's with? First, I'm eating with rice, and what utensils? Usually a chopstick or a spoon, so it should fit on a fork or a spoon reasonably, and it's kind of pretty logical. I'm not a rocket scientist, I just cook food. So if it makes sense to me, it's gonna be easy for you to do. So half, remember, tile, slice, dice applies to everything in the world. I mean, it really is that simple. All right, so I've got all my thighs cut up. These need to be cooked into crispy nuggets. So a few things, let me wash hands first. anytime I'm touching raw meat, I'm always gonna do a hand wash before I actually move on, because I don't wanna cross-contaminate anything. And notice I'm not touching that towel because it's still veggie clean. This is not. To get a really crispy nugget, you want something called tempura flour. And if you can't get it, no big deal, but this is all it is. Tempura flour is part AP flour, all-purpose flour. The other part is cornstarch or potato starch, because flour, all-purpose flour gives you structure, right? Potato starch gives you lightness. So when you bring those two together, you get the perfect fry coating. And sometimes you've got a little baking soda in there because, as you know, baking soda in liquid makes bubbles. And those bubbles translate into crispy airiness. So I need 2 portions of tempura flour. One is for the dredge, and I'll show you what that means in a second. And the other one is for actually making a batter. So to make a batter, I need 1 portion's tempura flour to the same portion of water. You want to make a batter that is about pancake consistency, maybe like a little thinner, okay? So that's gonna be around 1.5 times of the flour to 1 times the liquid, but you don't have to remember all these formulas. You know what pancake batter looks like. Just kind of shoot for that. If it's too thick, it's gonna get gloppy, and if it's too thin, it's just gonna run right off the chicken and not give you a nice coating. So pancake batter, that looks a wee bit thick, so I'm just gonna go a little more. It is like slightly thinner pancake batter, just like that. All right, if you do want a really crispy coating, that you can go thicker, but that makes me happy right there. Frying oil is at 375 degrees. I think that's an important temperature because most of the food that you put in the fryer comes from the refrigerator, 40 degrees. That means 375 degree oil, and that's gonna get you down to that perfect fry area of 350, okay? So that's why I'm always starting a little higher. This is what the dredge means, all right? All dredging means is I need a little bit of a coating for these nuggets to hold on to the batter. This actually will kind of absorb all the excess liquid in the chicken and then get it ready to stick to the batter. So that's dredged out. You want to knock off any excess, dump it right into the batter. You don't want a thick coating, just a light little batter, and then I'm going to just kind of swirl it right in and let it start frying. A thermometer is absolutely crucial, right? I am the biggest proponent of thermometers because it's the only way that you're gonna know your temp is right on. And on top of that, you're gonna know if the oil is cooling down too fast because you're throwing in kind of cold nuggets in. So, so always monitor the thermometer. And again, start higher than you need to go. And I do this in batches. And it all depends on how much oil there is and how cold it is. But all you really need to worry about is watching that thermometer. If it starts dropping down under 360, just stop. Let what's in the fryer just kind of keep going and allow that temperature to come back up. So I'm always watching my thermometer to tell me, hey man, could I go more? And if I can't go more, just hold. I like to swirl the chicken around because it gives you that kind of lacy, extra crispy batter, and it helps thin out any really thick pieces. You ever like eat tempura? Some of the beauty of eating tempura are those kind of uneven, lacy bits, as you can kind of see right there. And if it starts to stick together in the pan, just feel free to break it up. You don't want this to cook in one giant chicken chunk because it kind of defeats the purpose. It'd be a cool dish, but it's not General Tso's for sure. So now that I've overwhelmed the pan just slightly, my temp is at about 360, I'm gonna hold it. And that's about half the chicken. Now you don't wanna do it all at once because you gotta stay in the fry temperature zone, which is 350 and above, all right? Now, intro, new crucial cooking tool. This is called a spider. This is what you're gonna move the protein around. This is what you're gonna use to move the chicken around. You're gonna break up any kind of large lumps that it formed. And you wanna get rid of these extra crispy bits because these crispy bits are delicious, but if they go too long, they start to burn and they'll actually burn out your oil. And they'll actually make your food taste burnt. So any large crispy bits like that, just get rid of. So as the temperature starts to climb again, I'm gonna start with my next batch. And I'm looking for a golden brown color. The golden brown at the right temperature will basically tell you that the chicken is cooked through. Knock off the excess, give it a little swirl as it drops in. All I'm making sure to do is pull out the cooked pieces, fish out all those nice crispy bits that are just batter only, and just allow everything to fry up at its own pace. So this is all the chicken I need for right now, but if you're making the entire recipe, please fry it all off, finish that, hit pause, and then we'll come back and then finish the rest of the dish. Bringing in the rack for the finished chicken. As you can see, this takes a minute, so don't rush this. You want nice kind of light golden brown nuggets, and you want all your chicken to be cooked through. So the first of the finished pieces are done, and I'm just gonna let them drain on a rack. Do not just put them on a plate where they just re-soak up all that oil and get soggy. The whole idea is you want this very crispy. Don't stress out if they're not golden brown here. The beautiful sauce that I'm gonna show you how to make is really what's gonna make this dish pop. All right, so that's good. Let's go ahead and make this sauce. We've got a little bit of time. So I'm gonna bring this little burner up to low to medium, and I'm just gonna be adding my favorite Chinese ingredients. Oyster sauce, probably the most important Chinese sauce. It is the umami bomb, right? Soy sauce is not the king of the Chinese kitchen. It is actually oyster sauce because it has savoriness, it has sweetness, it has a really round, complete flavor. Hoisin sauce, which is a sweet sauce, just a little bit of that. Moving on, General Tso's is a spicy-ish dish. So I'm using chili garlic sauce here. Use chili garlic, do not use sriracha. Different country, different culture, different flavor profile, okay? I need a little water to thin this all out. Soy sauce as a backup player, as the salt here. And then the tanginess comes from white vinegar. General Tso's has that red color, and that actually comes from a drop of food coloring. Now, I've had colleagues and friends complain about red food coloring in here, but I tell you what, if you've eaten it in a restaurant, this is what brings the color. So look, dude, if you're gonna freak out about food color, just leave it out. But I'm here to show you how they do it in the restaurants, all right? So just a nice drop. If you want that crazy nuclear magazine color, put another drop in there. Now I need to get the sweetness in here, and that comes from sugar. It looks like a lot of sugar, but that is for one big old portion. And then to get the sauce to stick to the chicken in the pan, I need a cornstarch slurry. And all a slurry really means is mixing cornstarch into the water, because if you were to put the cornstarch right into this warm sauce, it would basically turn into one clump. So in order to introduce the cornstarch slowly, you want to add it to water first, which in kitchen talk is a slurry. The slurry helps to thicken the sauce into a beautiful glaze, and you want to continually whisk as you get the slurry in there. Because what's happening is cornstarch activates with heat. At about 160 to 180 degrees, the cornstarch molecules actually absorb like a sponge, and it takes up all that sauce. So when you have this, we have a ton of cornstarch in there, these sponges becomes a raft. Does that make sense? So the perfect amount of cornstarch makes a beautiful glaze. Too much cornstarch makes one basically a clump of sauce. So, and again, to activate the cornstarch, I want to get this to 180 degrees. That just means when you start to see it simmer a little bit, it'll pull together into a sauce. As that cornstarch starts to activate and starts to thicken, I want to add just a hair of ginger and garlic because I want to leave the rest for the pan. And that's going to give you that beautiful kind of aromatic note. I'm watching this pan for the simmering just to begin on the edges. Once that simmering starts, I want you to turn the heat down to maintain a low simmer. I don't want this into a rolling boil because I don't want to over-activate this cornstarch. All right, so my chicken pieces are perfect. Light golden, very firm and crispy. Let's give that a drain and then move it to the rack. And then turn your heat off right away. Sometimes people forget to turn that oil off and it starts to smoke and you're like, what is going on in my kitchen? So there it is, oil's off. Now I'm looking for the small bubbles here in my sauce, and I want this sauce just to thicken into a nice glaze. I don't want this cornstarch to basically over thicken this sauce. I want the thickening to finish in the actual wok with all the rest of the ingredients. So I want the cornstarch to slightly thicken the sauce into a glaze, but once I put it into the wok and it starts to boil aggressively, it's gonna turn into that beautiful kind of candy-ish coating for this chicken. So as you can see, I'm getting bubbles on the outside of the pan, and as those bubbles start to happen, I wanna continue to stir that slurry into the sauce until I get a nice even kind of consistency or texture. So I'm looking for that kind of chefy, coats the back of a spoon consistency, and all that means is this. So I've got even bubbles. I'm gonna turn off the heat now. And if you run a wooden spoon through this very hot sauce, give it a second to cool. And when it's cool enough to touch, you just wanna run your finger and create a channel across that sauce. And if the sauce doesn't run across that channel, that's the perfect consistency. In French, we would call it nappé, but all it means is it's perfectly gonna coat the chicken nuggets. All right, we are ready to fire. I've got chicken ready to go. I've got all my veg happening. My sauce is good. Let's move over to the wok now. Let's check on Chef Mike to see if he's got the broccoli up. Oh, yeah. Chef Mike actually did a nice job. When you're pulling steamed veg out of the microwave, don't lift up the plastic thusly to burn yourself and give you a facial. Grab the front, the 12 o'clock first, and pull away. And that's how you're not ever gonna hurt yourself. Oh, Mike, he did a phenomenal job. Excellent. So you see this excess liquid? We don't want that. So I'm gonna use the spider again and drain that off. It's a phenomenal technique because I don't need to shock the broccoli, right? Traditionally, I'd have to boil it, shock it in cold, drain it again. I've cooked it just enough so the carryover, meaning the cooling, is gonna get that broccoli to that perfect kind of crispiness. So I am good to go. Is my mise en place set? Chicken check, veggies check, broccoli check, sauce check. All right, let's do this. Let's turn that wok up all the way. Not very dramatic, is it? Boom, there it is. We always want to get our wok up at full blast. A word on woks while this one is preheating. You don't need a wok to cook Asian food. I don't want you to be discouraged and go, dude, I don't have a wok, I can't do this. A Dutch oven is probably even better than a wok in an American kitchen. Something like this, enamelized cast iron, is flat on the bottom so it doesn't roll around like that, and it's gonna retain heat beautifully. So again, don't freak out. I'm using my wok here, but you don't need one at home. All right, wok is ready to go. I want about 2 tablespoons of oil to start, and I'm gonna grab it right from the fryer. As you can see, there's no need of getting new oil. I can just use this frying oil to start. All right? If you're not using the wok oil, I want you to use any neutral high temperature oil. Peanut, canola, vegetables, fine. Just stay away from olive oil for the Asian kitchen. Aromatics and vegetables. Let's go onions. And I'm doing the onions first here because I want them to kind of brown up on the edges. I mean, we all know the flavor of caramelized onions. It is delicious. That's gonna help cool the pan a little bit too. Now our aromatics. Little garlic, ginger, and your job is to just keep everything moving, all right? If you're hearing the sear and seeing smoke come off the wok, your temperature is always perfect. Broccoli. And now the pan's actually cooling a little bit. I'm gonna raise up the heat to stay ahead of it. Let me get this frying oil out of the way. Do this carefully. I'm ready for my chicken pieces. Let's get those in there. Now, because this sauce has sugar and slurry in it, it's not gonna sog out this chicken. Does that make sense? So if it was a water-based sauce, it would actually penetrate the coating, but because it's got sugar and it's got a nice amount of cornstarch, it's just gonna give it a nice coating. So all you're worrying about right now is tossing this to coat well. Let's add these dried chilies. And these are dried Thais or chili japonais, anything you can get at the grocery store. I do like them stemless because you don't want those chili stems getting stuck in people's teeth. They're not really fun to eat. Don't put the chilies in too early because you're gonna make basically pepper spray and clear the room. So the chili should go in right at the end. So what I'm looking for is a perfect glaze. I'm looking for just enough sauce to kind of eat with the rice. The chicken has a ton of sauce on it, and if you find yourself needing a little more sauce because you have guests that love sauce, you could always put a little more in. And remember, because there's cornstarch and sugar in here, this isn't gonna sog out the dish. All right, let me clear up to plate. All right, plate of rice, my beauty plate, and here we go. I am salivating from all these smells. Now, I like serving a little rice on the side. If you're doing like a family meal, you know, I do with my kids, I'll just put it over a beautiful bed of rice. And if you're not doing rice, brown rice, even cauliflower rice, this really is a phenomenal meal. And it beats takeout. You don't need to go and order takeout, make it at home. So finishing touches is a little garnish of scallion. And there you have it, my friends. General Tso's, better than takeout in the comfort of your own home. Crispy, sweet, sour, savory. It takes me back to walking through Chinatown with my grandmother and getting a snack while buying groceries to make dinner. Probably one of the most iconic Chinese American dishes. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks for cooking with me today, and we'll see you next time.